Hey, stay right there. This is Alex Mondosian, and welcome our tribe. Those of you who watch our weekly Friday Hangouts, welcome all of you, and then also welcome friends, colleagues, and the tribe and following of Andy Harrington. He is my special guest today. We do these weekly Hangouts, and today is a very special one because we're talking about what we're doing right here. Now, we're doing it virtually, but it's the same skill set done on stage or in front of people in a public setting. And it's all about speaking, professional speaking, public speaking, and we'll start with the first why. Why become a master speaker? Most people feel that speaking publicly is worse than dying. It's the number one fear. And really it's a fear of looking bad. Social psychologists have told us this for years. And for me, I'm an introvert, yet I still enjoy speaking publicly. What is it in me that allows me to do that? We're going to investigate that. I want you to think about why it's important for you to become a master speaker. I don't know if you think you have a topic or if you think you have a topic worth speaking about in public, but ultimately becoming a master speaker is like becoming a master writer or becoming a master author. Many people think author is always aligned with writing a book, but that's not true. Author is short for authority, and I am certain that you are an authority in some area of your life. You don't need to have the highest levels of self-esteem to own a part of your life. If you're married, ask your spouse. If you have kids, ask your children, and ask your little voice inside what you may think you are not only good at, but you could create some intellectual property or IP and monetize as an appreciating asset. So I'm going to jump to my guest because he has all the answers. Why learn from Andy Harrington? Andy, it's Friday the 13th. It is a Friday. We have full moon. The World Cup is happening. Google has barred us from doing the Hangout from our event page because of the verbiage, how to make money from who you are and what you know, motivating millions. According to them, that's not possible, they told us. First time I've been banned doing this, so it's a really good hangout to do because we're going to prove Google wrong. But let's start with what makes you uniquely qualified to talk about this subject, because I've seen you do it, and literally thousands have rushed to the back tables to continue education with you. So let's talk about why you've earned the right. Go for it.
Well, thank you, by the way. It is Friday the 13th, but it's a good date because it's the day before my birthday, which is tomorrow, and I'm here in Amsterdam, actually. I've got an event on Sunday, and so we're here on Sunday enjoying the World Cup, so I'm really looking forward to this weekend here in Amsterdam. But why should you learn from me? Well, I guess I started this about 12 years ago. At that time, I had a business of my own. It had done pretty well. We'd pulled in about £21 million at this point. It was an IT recruitment company. And I had something sort of epiphany moment almost. And it happened like with many people in our industry in a Tony Robbins event. I was sitting there at this event with my partner at the time. I'd taken her there because she had some big challenges that I couldn't solve myself. I didn't know anything about NLP or hypnosis or voodoo or anything like that. And so, he transformed her life in one live intervention. Tony likes to pick someone to work with one-on-one at the front of the room. And he chose her, and as luck would have it. And she had an intervention with him, and it changed her life. And I remember sitting next to her and thinking to myself, wow, this is amazing, but how come I had to come all the way from my country to the United States to get this solution for her? Why is it that everybody else seems to be taking pills and stuff for the challenge that she had? And then you mentioned the quiet voice earlier, but that's the voice that went off in my head and said, maybe that's why you're here. Maybe that's meant to be you. Maybe that's meant to be your journey. But to be honest, the goal seemed a bit big. Like I wanted to be like Tony Robbins, right? Like many people, you lean on a model. You want to become like the guy up there. You want to sort of model and become them. But I guess I looked at Tony and looked at myself and thought, Andy, you can't be like him. His teeth are bigger than you. So it kind of, the goal was too big. And then I kind of left it until another seminar later I did with Tony when you have this thing where you pair up with a stranger, and the idea is you look straight into their eyes and be really present for them. And I couldn't find a partner And then I decided that my partner ought to be Anthony Robbins. It's a big audience of 5,000 plus people, big screens on every side, security guards all around, and security guards stopping idiots like me from going to talk to someone like Tony. And I marched right up, and to my complete surprise, he agreed, and I had an intimate moment with Tony Robbins where I was crying because I was so grateful for what he'd done for us. And to my surprise, he was crying too. And in that moment, I made a life-changing decision. I'm gonna be a speaker. I didn't have a message. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I didn't know NLP. I didn't know anything really. I just had this drive to do it, and I started delivering my own seminars back in the UK. Off my own back, putting people in the room myself by trial and error, or trial and terror, maybe, with public speaking. And over the years, I developed a technique of being able to systematically put a message together that not only inspires people, but also gets them to enroll at the back of the room in further ongoing education. And I'd be very fortunate now to have shared the stage with some incredible people that I once attended their seminars or saw them on TV. So people like Sir Richard Branson, obviously, I've spoken alongside him about 4 or 5 times now in the last year. Tony Robbins twice since that time, where I looked into his eyes. Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump. And even Bill Clinton, for example. And these are people I had the opportunity to speak alongside, and there's nothing special about me, but there's something very special about what I'm able to do. And that's just a system that anybody really could learn. And that's what I've been doing now. And I had the honor, really, of training some of the world's best speakers. And as a result of that, they've got on big stages around the world. And that's really cool for me, because it makes me look good when they kind of say, who do you learn from? And I guess that's what I've made my name doing, is helping people to get on bigger stages, and also how to monetize it, how to make money from doing so.
Thank you, Andy. The reason Andy's here with me is we've been planning this for several months, and if you stay tuned, I made special arrangements with him to have a second hangout next week, a week from the time of this recording. And why learn from Andy Harrington? Because in my opinion, he can teach ordinary people how to present an extraordinary message to the masses and make money from it. Now, we have a very lofty promise that I just asked him, what would you like to talk about? And, could we post it on our Google Hangout event page? And we had the most number of people actually RSVP for this Friday the 13th full moon that we've ever had. Now, we've had up to 2,000 people watching, but we had the most RSVPs. Andy mailed his list, I mailed mine, and then about an hour before the event, I got a notice from Google, first time I've ever seen it, and it said, because of the wording, now if you see the banner here, because of the wording, we have taken down your event because you have violated Google's policy. Now, I haven't read that part of Google's policy. I don't know where we violated it, but here is the banner so you see it, Motivating Millions, How to Make Money from Who You Are and What You Know. And the 3 promises were discovering how to take what you know, which we're going to teach you here, and turn it into intellectual property. That's IP, which becomes an asset, I'll say appreciating asset, so you can leverage for the rest of your life rather than working so damn hard each day. Maybe the word damn got us out. I have no idea. Next, find out how to position, very key word there, position yourself as the go-to expert, go-to gal, go-to guy, whomever, for the industry you are in. You may not even think of yourself in an industry, but you will by the end of this hangout. So business comes to you rather than you having to go hunting for it. And then the 3rd star or promise is how to sell your products and services to large groups of people for premium prices. Now, high-end clients, premium client marketing is what I've been doing recently at a much higher profit level rather than selling one-to-one. And this one strategy will transform your business forever. Now, we had that up all week, and today, for whatever reason, the event page where we usually host this event was taken down. Now, I told you why, Andy. Why this? Why become a master speaker? What does a master speaker need more than anything else? I believe that it's not a whatever it takes attitude or not giving up. I believe a master speaker is more about adaptability. If you can adapt, then you can become a master speaker. And that's what we did today. We just adapted what may have been a complete disaster for most. We just moved it to marketingonlinehangout.com. We're going to have our replay up so that you can watch the replay. If you're watching live, you're one of the few, because everyone else went, according to their Google calendars, to the Google event. We're not going to argue with God with a little g, that's Google. What we're going to do is we're going to adapt instead. And so I'm in great spirits, Andy's in great spirits, and that's what marks a master speaker. Because on stage, I have been in disastrous situations, as I'm sure Andy has, and I'd love to hear his stories. I'll tell you mine. And we've adapted, and we've ended up making money from the platform in front of many people, and they didn't even know it was happening. And I've had some atrocities happen during live presentations on stage. Now, why learn more now on speaking? You may have not thought of your mouth being a revenue generator, but why learn now? And that brings up not the ROI, which many people talk about. I think ROI is up to you, return on investment. I can't promise you return on investment, right? We get in trouble for ROI, like with Google, right? Even though it's true. I want to talk about COI. Well, Alex, what's COI? COI is cost of inaction. What if you don't take action? Forget what you're going to make. Let's say you just make $1, right? And that turns you into a professional if you make $1, right? You're a professional speaker. But what if you don't take action? What will happen? Here's what will happen. You don't have a legacy. You know, if you don't write a book, if you don't speak and record it and have it videotape like we're doing right now, you don't have a legacy. You don't have the potential to make money. You don't get to dominate YouTube like Andy does and generate traffic for free in many cases. See, you don't get all of that. You don't get to change other people's lives, which is why most people do public speaking. And you don't get to improve yourself by publicly declaring what you're teaching, because every master was once a disaster, and everyone teaches what they have to learn most. So everything I teach, Google Hangouts, means I have to learn it the most. Yet another lesson for me, getting banned from a single event, and the replay will be available to you. So you're probably watching the replay. I hope you're smiling, because this took about 3 months to put together. I could have easily said, Andy, let's just not do it. Instead, we're recording it, and we don't have the number of people watching live, but we'll probably triple that watching it on a replay. So, Andy, I'm going to go to intellectual property. You claim that what we know equals intellectual property, which is monetizable. Tell us, how could you say such a thing? Like what we know, is what we know that important? What do you teach your students?
Well, listen, you know, every business, no matter what the business is, it does one thing, and that is it sells something for a profit. And, you know, in years of old, you know, in days gone by, the assets that people sold were generally property, stocks and shares, those kind of things. And obviously products, but physical products that people made, which was very costly to do. Even buying a property is costly. You have to borrow the money, etc. But of course, you know, today we're living in the information age, and so the commodity of the information age is ideas. And the point is that right now there are people in the world that want to pay good money to know what you already know, because you've been through challenges and frustrations, had problems, and because of that, whether they're personal or business related or health related, for example, then you've figured out some answers because you've had to, because if you didn't, well, you know, it would have been a problem. And so those answers that you found, well, they're valuable. They're of huge value to other people. And, you know, there are two ways, aren't there? You can either continue to benefit from the knowledge that you have in of yourself, because you're never going to make that mistake again and keep on doing well and, you know, improving your life and your results. And also, though, you could teach that. You could teach others what you know, and that is what the guys in our industry are doing now. And because of, you know, the internet, and of course we're a great example tonight on this Google Hangout, because of the use of technology, that message can reach such a wide audience that you know, you can monetize that so well. So what I'm saying is, everybody needs one thing. To be successful in business, you need one thing: something to sell. You need something to sell, and they need people to sell it to. So right now, you already have some great knowledge. You probably don't appreciate it maybe as much as you could. You don't realize the value that you have, but there are other people that would be desperately wanting to know what you know. So the idea is you have to extract, once you can extract it from your mind, and then most importantly, the most important thing is you have to then extract it and then you've got to formulate it. You've got to put it into a kind of usable system, solution, blueprint, map, or whatever, a quick way for people to get from where they are to where they want to be. And you've got to have some steps for that, basically. You know, think 7 habits of highly effective people, if you will. It's a very simple 7-step strategy that gets you from being dependent to interdependent, ultimately, through those 7 habits. And, you know, it became a worldwide phenomenon. But, you know, it was because he created something that was unique. It was his. It was 7, therefore it's a system. And he monetized it. How did he do that? Through a book initially, then through seminars. And then, of course, what Stephen Covey did is he ultimately licensed the information. And what that meant is it could be taught by other organizations around the world, and they pay a fee for doing so, and he doesn't even have to be there. And so that was the huge monetization that he made, and why, you know, of course, we're still talking about him today, even though, unfortunately, sadly, he did pass away in the last few years. But we're still talking about him because, as you said, Alex, he left a legacy, he left a mark. And what a great gift to have lived a great life, a full life, and to then pass on that wisdom to others, for that to stick around long enough for your message to keep on going, so that when you've left this place, that you still leave your mark in some way. I always like to think, you know, if I were to die in the next few days, that it would bother a few people, that there'd be some people out there that would go, oh my gosh, really? And then hopefully my message would live on through the various products and programs and the people I've taught, so the message continues. I think that's a great life to live.
It is, and I knew Dr. Covey. I know his son, Stephen M.R., and, you know, Dr. Covey didn't make the big money by writing his book, even though it's one of the greatest bestsellers in business category of all time. He made money after his son, Stephen M.R., he's a Harvard grad. He wrote the book Speed of Trust, another great book. But after Stephen M.R. cut a deal with the Franklin Corporation, and it became Franklin Covey, and as you said, there was licensing involved because the message was codified. There were steps. It was duplicable, and there were nothing more. I'm not going to minimize it, but there were nothing more than observations.
That's right.
You see, if you are willing to learn and observe, I'm at my best when I'm teaching and when I'm learning. I get in trouble when I'm doing anything else. So if I'm teaching or learning, then I'm in not only in good spirits, but I'm growing. And if I'm not growing, I'm dying. My goal is not to be missed when I'm dead, because there's so much of me left behind that it's just not my physical access is not there, but all the hangouts and the teleseminars and the YouTube videos, they're all there, and people just can, you know, line them up, and whatever their favorite subject is, you know, they could just click and watch me speak. That's my goal anyway, is not to be missed for that reason alone. Now, because we have people watching and they've adapted, I want to welcome all of you, just so you get the scene here. Andy is in Amsterdam, and he's in a hotel room, and the Amsterdam, the troops outside, troops of and fans of soccer and football, and they say in Europe, they're gathering outside because the World Cup is happening, so you may hear some noise outside. I am in Marin County, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge, that famous orange bridge that you've seen near San Francisco, and someone is putting a lock on a door next to my office, so there's noise from that as well. It's not as eventful as crowds screaming in the streets, but almost. So if you hear background noise, that's because we're doing a hangout. Now, I want to invite everyone to engage in this hangout. We have Ellen from Colorado, Jeffrey in Irvine, Maria from St. George, Utah, Drew from the London, UK. He says it's a beautiful summer evening here. Dr. Allen from the Berkshire Mountains, Nikita from Philadelphia, Nancy Ballesteros from Cordoba, Spain, Michael hanging out from Pope Valley, California, Lucia from Bristol, UK, Erhard and Christine hanging out from Zurich, Switzerland, Georgina from the City of Gold in South Africa, Virginia from Reno, Nevada, Bogatti from South Africa, Jennifer Beal hanging out with us, Alex and Andy, she says, from Toronto, Canada. So who said that Google can get in the way of people coming on board? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to expose something. Now, that's what Andy said. Now, I believe that nothing happens until something is exposed in marketing. Just like Albert Einstein said, nothing happens until something moves. That's about energy. When you talk about engagement, which is, I believe, the new energy of the 21st century, engagement with each other, right? When people are divorced, it's because they didn't engage with each other enough. That's the number one complaint. He didn't pay attention to me. She didn't pay attention to me. It's engagement. So nothing happens until something is exposed in the world of engagement. And so I want you to expose, even though it may feel awkward or even a little vulnerable, your little voice when it comes to speaking on a stage in front of people. What's the first thing your little voice or inner voice or low amplified voice, just in the background, it may sound like your mom, your dad, yourself, a sister, a brother, whomever. What is that little voice saying? I'll give you an example. I can't do that, right? Or I don't have a topic, or I don't know enough, or I don't like to speak in front of people. Okay, what is the single sentence that comes out that prevents you from getting on stage? Now, that's a tall order for me to request with many strangers. Now, I have my tribe watching, but I also have Andy's tribe watching, and Andy's tribe doesn't know me. So I am really taking a leap of faith and asking you to write that down. Now, why am I asking you to do that? Is because inner becomes outer, and just like this bamboo in back of me, it's growing 3-4 years underground, but the moment it shoots up, everyone thinks it grows fast. Well, it only grows fast when the seeing part of it, but you don't see growing 3, 7, 10, 11 years under the ground, right? Many species of bamboo, some 15 years. Imagine the first bamboo farmer. Thought he was probably a failure. His wife was laughing at him. Where's the plant? It's not growing, for 20 years, and then all of a sudden it shoots up in 6 weeks. So what is that inner voice? What is that little voice saying to you? Just one sentence, and let's compare little voices. And the reason I'm doing this is you'll be shocked how other people can identify what your little voice says. Because once you get that prevention out from your inside to the outside, then that inner game becomes an outer game, and you look at how ridiculous it can be. So share it with us, either what it used to be or what it is now. I don't care, but put that out there so other people can read it. I'll be happy to read it here as it shows up in my chat that Sean Adams is putting on for me, and that is engagement. That's what I want you to engage in. Why not? It's Friday the 13th. It's a full moon. Now is better than ever. So let's talk about IP, or intellectual property. When you think something is important, then it becomes intellectual property, and you protect it. So why is IP, Andy, a monetizable, and I'm going to say appreciating asset? You and I both have IP that we have codified, systematized, and sell, but why do you say it's monetizable and appreciating for anybody?
Because everybody has an answer to someone's problem, and the challenge is that most of us, what we do is, we randomly give that information to people. We don't realize that the advice we may give them is of value to them. But the key here is by turning it into a model or a framework. When we put our ideas into a framework, and I like to say your framework tends to fall into 3 categories. Either your framework is going to be listed as 6 or 7 to 10 items as, say, an acronym. So every letter of each point of wisdom spells out a word. It could be alliteration. They all begin with the same letter. Or it could be based around a shape of some kind. Tony Robbins, for example, does everything around triads. He'll have a triangle, but there are 3 different things on the outside that lead to, for example, success in one particular area. So he just ties it very simply to triangles. And there's something about turning it into a framework that makes it stand up and makes you stand out compared to everybody else. And it's important that you do things that are unique as well, and don't just copy other people and regurgitate somebody else's material, because we have to, be unique and bring things forward. So, I always say, when I see someone, for example, who's teaching SMART goals, I go, well, it's not too smart because it's been around a long time, and the best thing for you to do is to come up with your own version of goal setting, because that's unique to you, and you're not just talking around somebody else's intellectual property, because you can't really monetize that on an ongoing basis. But when you create something, when you take out of you your how-to, so for example, it could be around anything. So, for example, let's say you're a photographer, right? Well, if you're a photographer, you only make money when you press the shutter, which is limiting because there's only so many times you can press a shutter in a day and make money. But that knowledge that you have of how to press a shutter and take great photographs, well, that's incredibly important knowledge that you can share with others. So why not turn it into intellectual property and give people a 1, 2, 3 ABC system in how to do it? And then when you begin, you may have a simplified system, but as you begin to focus more in a particular area, then what happens is you'll deepen your knowledge and your wisdom and your understanding, your ability to understand what you do that works. And then you'll take your audience deeper. And as a result of that, they'll pay you more. Because the more detailed you give people the steps, the more you typically get paid. You can start with something very generic and synthetic, which is all very interesting, but you maybe not make a lot of money from that. But when you're later down, you've got the real nitty-gritty of what to do, whether that, for example, is in, I don't know, motivation, a general sort of self-help, whether it's in business, sales, marketing, relationships, health, productivity, style. These are the sort of generic topics that we all need, and you'll have definitely some answers in this area. And I always start to say, people often say, but I don't really know anything. Well, they do. They just don't, haven't thought about how to get that message out of them. And that's what I spend time doing. That's what I love doing, is helping people to extract that knowledge. Because frankly, most of us are sitting on $1 million idea, right? We're all sitting on it. We have the value in us, but we're not getting it out into a product format, and we're not then populating that message, getting it out to the wider community to start making the difference. Because I believe myself that, in terms of making money, a lot of people feel bad about people who make lots of money, but actually when you think about it, before we had money, what did we have? We had bartering. And so what that meant is, if I go and help someone with public speaking, someone might fix my boiler. But that's problematic if I don't want my boiler fixed. It becomes difficult. So we have money as an exchange, which is a promissory note. So what that means is, people who have got more money, what does it mean? Well, they've done more favors for other people. They've got more stored up favors in promissory notes. So what it means is, you must be a giver. You must be a giver if you've got lots of money. You must have found a way to add lots of value to lots of people's lives. And what I'm saying is, you haven't got to go out there and create and invent something, with your hands necessarily. You can invent something with your mind. That's the best real estate out there. Why not monetize that? And that's why it's an appreciating asset, because over time you can leverage it through, once you've created something, you can leverage it live through workshops, seminars, boot camps. You can turn it into an audio product. And how quickly can we do that? Well, extraordinarily simply, just using simple software like Audacity or GarageBand. We can turn it into a video-based product. We can use ScreenFlow capture software, ScreenFlow, or, for example, Camtasia. It's so simple and easy to use. Like literally within an hour, you'll have it down. Everything you need to know. And you can also do mastermind groups. You can do high-end stuff with high-ticket items. And if you're doing anything one-to-one at the moment, well, I don't have a problem with you doing things one-to-one. I have a problem with you making it the only thing you sell. I have a problem with you making it the first thing that you sell, because then you lose your positioning. You're making yourself too available, too quickly, for too cheap a price, and you can't scale a business like that. That's the problem.
Well, what I really acknowledge you for saying is, you take the simple and make it extraordinary, and most people aren't willing to start there. And the simplest thing that you said, I don't know if everyone caught it, but he didn't start with the solution. Most people, if someone asks me what's the single biggest problem that most professional speakers or presenters, trainers, teachers, what do they do wrong? And I would say, including myself, I throw myself in, is they jump to the solution much too fast. They sell the solution too prematurely without establishing the problem. All the rapport, all the heart is in the problem. The cost of inaction versus the return on investment, COI versus ROI, is something that we speak in our language. Most of the people in my tribe know this. Is such a big difference, because You know, one is a promise that we can't be kept unless the person on the other end does the work. And another one is what's not happening as a result of not taking action. Never mind taking it with me. If you don't take action, what's going to happen and what could happen if that continues? And what will happen if it continues indefinitely? Something terrible. Nothing. So the goal here is identify problems that you face, your biggest frustrations, your pet peeves. And it's almost like gaining rapport through commiserating. And one of the problems that gets in the way is that little voice. So I had a reach out to all of you as you're watching this live. Now, if you're watching on the replay, then you can write that down as well. But this is what some people have said. Okay, I said, what is your little voice saying to you before you go on stage or before you think about becoming a master trainer or speaker in your area of expertise or developing an area of expertise? This is what we've heard so far. I have a slight case of Tourette syndrome, and I always have a fear it will be bad when I'm on stage. So the little voice could be saying, hey, what if that pops up when I'm on stage? Okay, that'll prevent you from going on stage. Here's another one. Do people really want to hear what you have to say? This person, you know who you are, this person is actually speaking in the third person to themselves. You can imagine what that's like if you live with that. And then someone else says it's not happening now, but when I first got started, it was, who do I think I am to do such a thing? I'm not anybody. That's in the first person. I haven't decided yet, is the third person or first person more crippling? I haven't decided. My little voice is both in the third, the second, and the first. And then we have Nikita. My little voice tells me that I'm not a techie, and I'm not. It's not easy for me to manage the hiccups that come along with Google Hangouts. And then she says, "Ooh, oi! All right. Well, then go speak in public. You don't need Hangouts for that. That's awesome." My little voice says, it says to me, who of you will be interesting? Who will be interesting to learn about Spanish cooking with somebody that doesn't speak very clear in English? Okay. And then someone else said, if I freeze, I cannot remember what I want to share. And someone else says, you're not confident enough. And then we have a comment from Andrew. Andrew says, having seen a bit from Andy, it's good to hear your views, Alex, and reinforce our plans for our new venture. Andy from sunny Somerset, UK. So I don't know if that's an Andrew that you know or I know, but congratulations, Andrew. You're in the right place. Maria says, great point, Andy, about creating value and helping others. People don't understand a solution until they really feel their pain, Maria continues. So that brings us to this point, which you're a big, big fan of. In fact, on your lower third, you're doing it. It's called positioning, and you're right there with Sir Richard Branson, who you shared the stage with. He's a multi-billionaire. What is positioning, and why is it so important in becoming a trainer and speaker, Andy?
Yeah, because ultimately you want business coming to you rather than you going to it. It's a never-ending cycle if you're going out there trying to make money by pushing your products and services onto people. So here's what I say. If I say to you running shoe, I imagine that most people currently think right now of Nike,
right,
as the company.
Right.
And the reason that is because they own a space in your brain. Literally, that means that when you have a problem that needs solving, as in I need a running shoe, it's automatic that you think of them and you walk to a store, and through merchandising you move towards those products. Because that's the positioning that they have. So here's the question. Is right now, if somebody has a problem in their life or their business that you could solve, do they think of you? Do they think of you first? Have you positioned yourself? Because it's all about, and I think it's all about one thing. Most people, they try to be all things to too many people. They try to multitask rather than unitask. It's all about the one thing. What's the one thing that you want to be known for, that you want to be remembered for, seen as an authority on an expert on? That's the key thing, because otherwise you're just lost in the sea of sameness, and no one's going to remember you, because not everyone's ready to buy when you're ready to sell. That's clear, because everyone's at a different stage in the buying cycle. Now, if you turn the sales process into an educational one, we can elongate the sales process, which means that we can build rapport and empathy in the problems and stuff that they have, build this idea there's a gap in their life that needs solving. We can do all of that, and we'll sell more in that first transaction we have with them because of that. But even so, even after that, not everyone's going to buy. But the question becomes, when they hit a pain threshold, where it's like a solution becomes urgent and important enough to make a buying decision, the question is, will they come back to you? Will they search for you? Will they find you? And that's the key distinction. And one of the ways that you can begin, because you can't compete with Nike, clearly, but you can actually in many ways, because using your ability to teach, you can give first. People tend to think ask and you shall receive, but actually in the marketing world it's give and you shall receive. Give first, build a following, create trust, credibility, authority, know, like and trust, as we say. And then, if you keep on communication with that client, if you keep in their mind, as of course through advertising on TV and posters and you name it, we're going to be reminded of Nike. The question is, how do you keep those touches going? Well, it's through email, it's through Google Hangouts, it's through YouTube videos, it's all those kind of things which are basically free to deliver your message to your tribe once they know about you and you've captured some of their data. So, for me, positioning is about deciding first what problem are you going to solve? What's the one major problem you're going to be known for? So for me, yes, it's public speaking, but I'm less about helping people overcome their fear. I'm more about people who have a desire to want to be a speaker and want to make money from it. That's my target market. And as a result,
monetizing their message, right?
Exactly. Correct. Exactly right. Not people who just want to stand up and speak one time a year.
Don't you fight against self-esteem? Now, in a moment, I'm going to give you all a gift that Andy has set forth, and it's continuing education or pre-education to another hangout we're going to do next week, so you can train under Andy's tutelage so that you can take this to the next level, because what he does, I don't do. And so what we want to do is see if this is right for you, and he's gotten you an entire ebook, which I'm going to give you access to if you don't already have access to right now. But I'll do that in a moment. The one thing is, don't you fight people, at least their inner voice or whatever is getting in their way, where they don't think their message is worthwhile to expose? Isn't that something that constantly comes up? I know I do. I can't imagine you don't.
Yeah, it's all the time. I mean, I obviously do live programs, and that's why we spend, unlike, what I noticed, the thing I wanted to stand for is that I felt the same thing, is that people would come to a program, or I'd go to a public speaking course, learn how to wave your arms around and move around the stage and look good, but actually what creates credibility for you, what creates a feeling of certainty, is knowing that your message is a message of value. And I'll tell you what it comes down to, and it ties nicely into something I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is it comes down to knowing what you believe. Really what we're doing is, as speakers, what we're doing is we're sharing our beliefs, what we believe about something, because when you believe and you have conviction about something, when you have strong beliefs and a strong conviction about a particular subject, the words flow. Conversation is easy when you're passionate about a subject. And what most people do is they try to become perfect rather than passionate. Because if you think about a conversation, we don't ever script out a conversation before we have one. You and I didn't script this conversation out clearly. We're just talking from our level of passion and our beliefs. What you've been hearing the entire time from Alex and from me is just our beliefs about a particular topic area. And that's what makes us interesting. That's what makes you interesting, is when you share an opinion. Most people try to be too vanilla. They're not edgy enough. They don't stand for anything, as Eminem said. If you have enemies, good for you. It means you stood for something. And you think of all the best speakers in the world ever. Martin Luther King's, for example. They have been, in many respects, held up because of those beliefs, but also shot because of them. And what I mean by that is, when you stand up out of the crowd, not everyone is going to believe in you. Not everyone is going to like your message. And you have to have strong enough conviction to go through that, because, leaders do what's right, not what's easy. What's easy is to follow, be in the crowd, watch the seminar, learn. What's more difficult is getting up and leading your industry, making a difference, and getting your message out in a way that's unique and different to other people. That's what I believe.
And we're going to get to your beliefs, because that's how you start the ebook. I'm going to say something controversial. Andy just mentioned you have to give first, right? It's not about asking, it's about giving. And the only way you succeed, in my experience, is never keep score. because you're never going to get back what you give to the source that you gave to. But karmically, through laws of the universe, you'll get it back if you just keep giving, but it's never the direct place that you're giving, in my experience. And I'm going to say that with absolute certainty from my own experience. I never have felt I've gotten back equally from where I've given, so I've never taken that position. I just give and I don't keep score, because I know self-servingly and benevolently it's always going to come back at one point and another. And that's why positioning is so important, because if you position yourself and you give from a place of people knowing what you stand for, as Andy does, then they know where to give back, because you have positioned yourself appropriately. Now, if you go to marketingonline.com/Andy, simple as that, marketingonline.com/Andy, you are going to get a masterpiece. And it is a masterpiece written by a master speaker. And it's a masterpiece written by a master speaker on the Master Speakers Academy, which you're looking at right now, distance learning. It's self-paced, meaning you go at your own pace, and if you're like me, you'll read it in one sitting. Now, when you get past the disclaimers, I believe the most important page is not even the message from Andy, sorry. The most important page is page 7, Empowering Beliefs of a Trainer. Here they are. Everyone has their own unique view of the world. Okay, that's good reason to listen to someone and to have a message. To create rapport, a trainer must appreciate their view in the world. The meaning of a trainer's communication is the response they get. Now that is a very powerful, I wish my mother had read this when I was 5 years old. That would have been a lot less tumultuous childhood for me. Being vulnerable is real power. Have I noticed that? Have I asked you to be vulnerable? You are a professional speaker right now. You're publicly speaking with your fingers. Resistance is a sign you need to create more rapport. When you get resistance from an audience, it's a sign that you need more rapport. Well, we don't have resistance today. We just have Google fighting us, and we have amplified the number of people viewing. We have tripled it in half an hour. So I sent another email out to everybody, and thank you for watching. There are no resistant audiences, only inflexible trainers. Man, do you speak to my heart on that one, Andy. And that is only page number 7. So my recommendation is read this entire ebook, because in less than a week, I'm going to ask you to participate financially into Andy's training. So I'm not ready to give it to you now, but there's 108 pages here. You can do that in a week easily. Just simply read 15 pages a day, and you will be there. So let's talk about really the essence of this ebook is how anyone can become a go-to expert, right? How does that happen, Andy? Why is that possible?
Well, anyone can be a go-to expert because, as I said previously, we all can make our mark by deciding what we want to be an expert in, even if we've not even created extraordinary results ourselves. And of course, we always have achieved results. We obviously end up underplaying it. But I mean, you can literally become an expert by just reading more than other people. You know, you can study an area, literally become a pretty much expert, at least compared to other people. And what you've got to remember is, when we say an expert, that doesn't mean to say you are the world's foremost expert. It just means compared to some people, you're an expert compared to them. Which means that sometimes you only need to be 3 or 4 steps ahead, a few steps ahead of your audience. And what happens is, over time, your audience evolves as you do. Meaning that in the beginning, maybe you're not the finished article, but don't let that stop you from beginning. Tony Robbins began without being an expert compared to who he is today. Alex, started out as not the expert he is today. We became the expert today by doing. And I always like to say, because the motto of my Professional Speakers Academy that I run it's in Latin, but its meaning in English is teaching is the best learning, which means often you are reinforcing your own beliefs to yourself, oftentimes making a public declaration, which means you end up living by it and doing the things that you know you should do yourself. And quite often the stage or the screen, for that matter, depending on how you're doing it, can be the most therapeutic place in the world. So you become an expert by deciding to be one, by putting your stake in the ground. I remember when I started out, 12 years ago, and people would stop me in the street, or not in the street, but maybe be in a lift or whatever, or just casually chatting, and they say, "What do you do?" And I say, "Oh well, I do these seminars, like, and I get people to come and have a great room. We have like a breakthrough experience. They break wooden boards and they're walking on fire and doing this great stuff." And they go like, "Wow, that sounds amazing. How long have you been doing that?" I say, "I haven't started yet," because it first starts with the decision that you're going to be an expert, and you work towards it. And that is the currency. The currency is, if you're seen as an expert, and go beyond that as well, because expert seems like a great status, but you actually want to go even beyond that. You want to go from expert to celebrity expert. That's the place you really want to go to, is where you are seen as a real mover and shaker in your industry. And how do you do that again? Simply by giving. Just start from where you're at, start giving from where you are, and your crowd, your tribe, will build over time. Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say, and it will build over time. It's taken me 12 years to get to this level now, but that's because the industry grew up while I was in it. It's more developed now, and with the use of technology, you get us so much faster today than I did and Alex did today. So just decide you're going to be an expert in something, and either study the area more, or just utilize what you already know. In fact, do both of those things. Use what you know, and at the same time go study other people, so that you find best practice, and you're not just idiosyncratic to you, and you can build your message, your content around your problems and challenges that you've had, or the aspirations, dreams, and areas of focus that you've had in your life, your hobbies, for example.
Well, in the final 5 minutes, this begs the question: how can anyone present and sell to large groups? I mean, once you know that you're ready, you got to go on stage, and you have to have that first speech, or that fifth speech, or the 10th speech. So the toughest one is the first, because it's unplowed ground. How is that possible? What do you teach your students?
Yeah, well, a lot of people get this wrong, because what they do is they'll often do like a keynote speech and then bolt a sale onto the end. And that doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because, well, there's a number of reasons, but number one is it doesn't give people long enough at the end of your presentation to run their buying strategy and to run through whether they want something or not. So the only people buy are the impulsive people, the impulsive buyers, or the people you had at hello, which is a small percentage of the audience. So what you have to do is you have to build your presentation with the intention in mind of the ultimate outcome, which of course is to serve, but also to invite people to do more. And the key thing to remember here, the key thing that most people get wrong, is that what you need to do when you do a sales type presentation is be incomplete. And what that means is you need to show people like how they get from A to Z, in terms of your map of how you get there. And then, of course, you're going to essentially teach them some stuff, but the teaching by itself can't be complete, because otherwise at the end of the presentation they feel full. And what you've got to do is leave enough of a gap in their understanding for them to move towards you. So you need to then provide the remedy ultimately, which is for them to buy your product or service. That doesn't mean you disserve them in your message. It doesn't mean that the content that you give isn't rich. It's just by itself incomplete, because you're only going to speak to them for an hour or so anyway, and there's no way you can cram all of it in an hour, not if you've chunked and sequenced your content correctly, which is something you can learn to do. But the key skill is incompletion, so that at the end of it, they are drawn to want more. Think of a favorite meal that you like to eat. It doesn't matter what it is. I just had one of my favorite meals here tonight, which is spaghetti bolognese. And, I had a nice plate full of that. But, even though I love the food, I can't continue to eat it. Once I'm full, I can't take any more in. I'm going to be sick. And that's what happens when you give too much. The problem is most people give too much. And you can still give lots, but you need to know the layers of what you give. So you give people enough so they go, wow, this is brilliant. I need to learn more. But at the same time, don't give them too much. They become overfull and go, you know what, I need to digest what you give me already.
Yeah, very good.
Too much detail, far too quickly, which what happens is two things. Mostly the people become overwhelmed, and what they say to themselves is, because they get lost and they go, oh, this is too complicated. I can't do this. And the truth is, it's bad training. The truth is, it's just not good content put together. So you've got to be able to structure your message in such a way that success is almost guaranteed at every layer or level of understanding. And that way people go, tick, tick, I can get this, and that's great training. Most people give too much detail too early. So it's both an art and a science to do it, but anyone can learn it. People learn how to drive a car, and that's far more risky than standing up in front of a few people, I can tell you. So there we go.
Well, and then the final question is this: why is selling a premium, meaning high-end offer, not one-on-one as most people do, but to groups? Why is that critical to anyone's speaking career?
Yeah, two things. Because when you're on a stage, you automatically are risen to a level of authority. And when you demonstrate that authority and expertise, and you have empathy and giving, and then what happens is you can charge more for your services. If you're selling one-to-one, low-ticket items to people, and you'll have to if it's the first thing you offer them, unless you're already a celebrity, because there's too much risk involved for them to pay large chunks of money to you when you're not known. And so what you're better off doing there is essentially selling one-to-many, because then what you can do is you can create authority on the stage and give an advance such that the ticket items you can sell at the end are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $20,000 even dollars for a product or service, because they've got less fear over the transaction with you. You've demonstrated your authority, you've demonstrated your empathy, they've seen where they are at and where they can go to. And so the buying decision is so much easier for people. Otherwise, the sales process is long, it's complicated, there's lots of toing and froing. And what you want people is people moving towards you who want to buy from you and are happy to buy from you and trust you. And that's the key thing. What we can do is when we teach, we can build trust. And when you build trust, I mean real trust, because when you share a part of yourself with an audience, when you disclose something about yourself, what happens is you are seen, you are trusting the audience with that information about you. You're being yourself. And trust is a two-way street. You become trustworthy when you trust the audience with your message of hope and where you've come from, for example. As a result, then when trust exists, then you can charge higher ticket price, premium prices, which is something you can build a business around. Because if you're doing large volume, low value, it's a much more difficult business to build, I think.
Well, Andy, I'm going to come back to you. Public Speakers University is a website for people to check out. For now, we'll have another training in about a week, so stay tuned for that. You'll be getting emails from me on that, everyone in my tribe. I'll do a quick, we call this the review rampage, and when I'm done with it, then you leave us with one word. If there's one word that encapsulates this experience together, our first, please think of that now, because I'm going to give you about a minute to think about it. So we started with why become a master speaker, and that first why was very important, and if you go back to the replay, you'll find out why. Why learn from Andy? He's demonstrated this over the past 55 minutes, and I think you could understand that he's uniquely qualified in teaching you, even from a distance, how to find your voice and how to monetize that. Why learn more now about this? Well, now more than ever, having clear communication, being a professional speaker is more important than ever before, even more than writing a book, because the cost of inaction, the COI, means that nothing will happen. You got to get attention. Here's what a book can't do. Watch. Hey! Book can't do that. Or, hey, I'm glad you made it here. A book can't do that either. I am friends with some of the best-selling authors in the world, but a book can be utilized and learned from when you give it attention. But a public speech, whether it's on video, live, or you just are listening to it, you have the power of the voice, the spoken word, and the spoken word can be heard and learned from even when you're shutting your eyes, even when you're multitasking, even when your kids are climbing your back, or you're doing something else you're not supposed to be doing. Spoken word is powerful. So every great text was once a speech. Think about it. From Sermon on the Mount to Gandhi's speeches to I Have a Dream from Martin Luther King, they were all speeches. Then they were placed on scrolls. Then they were written into books. Okay? Next, what you know equals intellectual property, and intellectual property can be paid for. Why is IP a monetizable and appreciating asset? Go back to the replay and check it out. What is positioning? Positioning you and you're positioning yourself differently so you stand out is what's going to make you a wealthy professional speaker. Don't keep score when you're giving. That was advice from me because that's advice I've learned from my good friend Harvey McKay, best-selling author and professional speaker of many, many years, runs a $600 million envelope manufacturing company, so he knows what he's talking about. Why is positioning so important? Because it makes you more money. Next, how can anyone become the go-to expert in their field? Well, deciding to become one, as Andy insinuated, is the first step. And how can anyone present and sell to large groups? Well, stay tuned. All you have to do is go to marketingonline.com/Andy and learn from it, because that's the continuing education from this event, from this hangout. And why is selling premium offers to groups critical? Well, you're going to be sold a premium offer. You're going to be offered a premium offer. And so you have now an ebook to learn from as you build rapport with Andy while he's doing what he's doing. So you can do the exact same thing we're doing, model exactly what we're doing, setting up continuing education and further training exactly the way we're doing through the power of technology. Marketingonline.com/Andy is where you get the ebook and learn from it. And the most important page for me is page 7, Empowering Beliefs of a Trainer. Andy, as we come to a conclusion, give me one word and why that word depicts this hangout together, our first.
Well, you know what? I think it's really about authenticity. That's the word that I would like people to own. Today, I think what sells more than anything is not the razzmatazz, not the profile, not the if you like, the image, if you will. What sells today is authenticity. Just be yourself. You and what you know is of huge value. Don't underestimate. Be authentic. Don't try to pretend to be someone you're not. Just be you. You are amazing, and you're enough. You're a sparkling diamond, and you've got a gift to give to the world. So don't be selfish in not giving that gift to the world. Get it out to the wider world because you've learned some valuable things. Be authentic, be real, and get that message out there. Authenticity.
Well said. My word is adaptability. I've been suggesting it throughout the entire presentation. We've had to live into that word during this hangout the way we did it, and you're watching the replay because we were adaptive. And I know one thing about entrepreneurship or business, and that is he or she who manages uncertainty the best, internally and externally, is the one who wins. And those who don't learn the most. So I don't mind learning, but I like winning every once in a while. So adaptability, the ability to adapt, is the word. I'd like to know what your takeaways are. We have some takeaways being written without me even asking for them. Nikita says, great takeaway, give the layers and don't overstuff them. So useful but incomplete is a great way to have someone engage and enroll in your continuing education. There's a lot more to come with Andy. If you'd like to see him again, please write that in the chat so that we can take that and we can vote on that. And Andy, we're going to see each other next Thursday, and good luck in Amsterdam.
Thank you very much. I'll go and watch the Dutch play. I think there's halftime now, so I'm going to go into the throngs of the crowds.
All right. Well, that's after halftime is when the game counts, so I'm glad we could make it that far. Thank you, Andy.
Good. Thanks, Alex.